What's up, folks? My name is Chris. I'm your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, back again with a look at the Week 9 main slate. And I'm going to give you some of the top NFL DFS picks and core plays for DraftKings and FanDuel lineups on this week's 11-game main slate. Today, we have a lot of value that has emerged for the running back position because of a lot of the inactives that have already been declared for Sunday afternoon. Ramondre Stevenson's going to be out for the Patriots. We have DeAndre Swift, who's going to be out for the Chicago Bears. And we also have Isaiah Pacheco, who's going to be out for the Chiefs in the highest total game on the slate in the late window. My favorite spot there to exploit is going to be the Bears situation here with Kyle Monangai taking over the starting job for DeAndre Swift and facing the Bengals here at Paycor Stadium out there in Cincinnati. And the Bengals are one of the absolute best matchups in general for any running back this season. They're the second worst rush defense in the league. That is not all that's working in Monangai's favor here. The Bears also have the third best run blocking offensive line on the season. And the Bengals are the worst defense in the league defending running backs in the passing game. It could not be set up any better for Monangai to succeed here. He's just $5,200 here on FanDuel. Should absolutely be in all of your FanDuel lineups. If you play MME, in my opinion, I have no problem locking him here. And same thing over here on DraftKings, guys. He's $4,600. I know it is a road spot here. The Bears are only slight favorites here in what is also a high total game between the Bears and the Bengals here. But you'll find putting Monangai into your lineup really opens things up and allows you to pretty liberally spend your salary elsewhere. That's why he is going to be a great piece. And it certainly helps that he's also in a really good matchup to succeed here. Now, from here, always, I like to go through the teams that are in the best situations to succeed, looking at big favorites in the betting markets. So looking for spreads to kind of guide us towards some running backs that project to most likely be in favorable game script situations this Sunday. And we have a few extreme examples here in week 9. We have a couple of massive double-digit spreads, and more on those in the high-risk section of the video in a few minutes, because those definitely impact how we approach stacking teams in high-risk contests as well. But as far as the running backs are concerned here, we do have to start with Kyren Williams of the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams favored by 14 points here against the Saints on Sunday. One of those late window games here. We have Kyren Williams, just $6,800 here on DraftKings. He is going to be facing a roughly league average rush defense. Saints are also well below average defending running backs in the passing game. We have not seen Kyren have the same level of targets this year as he has had in previous seasons in a Sean McVay offense, but we're looking to see him have a really good performance on the ground here if this positive game script situation plays out, and that's what makes him a really strong play on both sites. He's projecting just outside the top 3 in terms of overall raw projected ownership, so I don't think he's completely in the low risk core of running backs this week, but it would be hard to argue with anyone playing him in their lineups this week because of the situation that they're in, right? So I have no problem playing him here on DraftKings, and when we check out the salary situation over on FanDuel for running backs, Kyren's just $8,000 over there, so that's not really a terrible spot at all either. The Packers are right behind the Rams in terms of massive favorite status this week. The Packers are favored by 13.5 points at home against Carolina. So wheels up once again for Josh Jacobs, cover boy here on the channel a couple of weeks ago when he had that matchup against the Bengals. Really like the spotting for Jacobs, who benefits from the fact that the Panthers ranking against the rush came down a ton after their game last week. They're now slightly below league average against the rush, but I do think Jacobs is going to profile as more of a high-risk play given the value we have here. Backup running backs going to be featured in a lot of lineups this week. Another running back that is favored heavily this week that isn't necessarily going to be one of the more popular ones, Amani Vidal with the Chargers on the road against the Tennessee Titans. $6,300 here on DraftKings. Hassan Haskins has been ruled out as well, so going to be backed up by Jarrett Patterson if you're playing in that single game environment there here between the Chargers and the Titans here. God bless you if you are doing that. But Patterson here going to be the number 2 back. Vidal going to benefit from the fact that this is the 4th worst rush defense in the league thus far on the season. So a really good spot here with the Chargers favored by 8.5 points. When we check Vidal's price over on FanDuel, he's just $7,700. So that's a pretty good bargain, if you ask me, for a favored running back as well. Other big favored by 9.5, skipped over this initially. The Lions, they are going to be playing against the Minnesota Vikings here at home in the 1 p.m. window. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs, the primary tailback here. David Montgomery, probably a better play for high-risk only situations here. The Vikings are roughly league average against the rush, and they are an above-average defense defending running backs in the passing game. We've still seen Gibbs out-touch Montgomery 2-1 effectively in this backfield, so he's definitely the guy that you want to look towards. Popular backs outside of positive game script situations here. San Francisco on the road against the New York Giants. They are going to have Christian McCaffrey, who has the best weighted opportunity role in football at the running back position, facing the worst rush defense in the league. That's why he's going to be in the core this week, probably at the flex position because of that salary, unless you like one of those 4 p.m. running backs here. Love getting him into lineups. Jaylen Warren with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are facing the best team in football this year in the Indianapolis Colts, but Warren still projects to be pretty popular because of his modest salary cost. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens with his projected ownership. We have him around 20% projected ownership right now on DraftKings and FanDuel, but with this value that has opened up with Hunt, with Henderson, and Monungai, I really feel like Warren's probably the guy that drops a little bit here. So that remains to be seen. But nonetheless, when we look at the matchup here, roughly league average against the rush, and the Steelers are actually slightly above average in the passing game. So not necessarily the best setup here for Warren. So that's why I expect to see his ownership get crushed a little bit here and kind of have him firmly high risk only as a result by the time everything kicks off on Sunday. We've got Tyrone Tracy on the other side of that game with the San Francisco 49ers in the Meadowlands there. I think Tracy's high risk only now is a 2-point underdog here at home, and everyone probably on some of the other plays on this Giants offense in their low risk lineups here, but would be a good high risk play at his modest salary cost. Looking at some of the other places I think the field will go this week outside of running back, Monungai, McCaffrey, I think are the two guys here. I don't have a third one in the lineup, so let me close the loop here on running back. Travion Henderson with Ramondre Stevenson out 4,900 here on DraftKings. When you hop on over to FanDuel, Henderson's just 5,300. I think he's a much better low risk play here on FanDuel because of the salary structure, but I don't mind playing him against the Falcons because the Falcons are a run funnel defense. They're a very good pass defense. They're not as strong against running backs. Henderson has been an explosive player on a per play basis. He hasn't necessarily had the volume to support it just yet for whatever reason. So it's kind of hard to see Mike Vrabel trusting Henderson with volume, but at the same time, they just don't really have a better option here. So the second round rookie is poised to break out here in week 9, and his DFS salary is set up for us to benefit from that here. So I actually really like Henderson, especially on FanDuel. Don't mind speculating on DraftKings though. If you want a boring play, because boring is an older player and we all like shiny new toys, Kareem Hunt, $5,900 here on FanDuel. He's $4,700 on FanDuel, so a little cheaper than Henderson on DraftKings. Chiefs playing in the highest total game on the slate. I think this is a pretty good high risk play as well with Kareem Hunt. So for all the bros that say that I have like 900 running backs that I think you should play, please always pay attention to the different contest designations I give them, low versus high risk. There's a lot of different context with these running backs. There are some quarterbacks that I think the field are going to use in low risk contests pretty much exclusively here. Mahomes in the late window is probably going to be right at the top there on both sites. But our model, when we flip over to the Occupy model, actually is telling us that Jackson Dart is going to be very popular, at least on DraftKings, at his $5,200 price tag here with his dual threat skill set. Probably should get a little bit more rushing action without Scatabo as well. So that I think is intriguing to me if you're looking for some salary dollars to get a better skill player in your lineup in low risk contest. Jackson Dart, again, I'll show you the Occupy model here. Projected ownership right now, Friday night, about 10 p.m. in the evening here on Halloween. Jackson Dart projecting for about 13% ownership on DraftKings. But I think this is more of a DraftKings low risk play. You'll see that we have Patrick Mahomes at 16%. Quarterback ownership is usually flat. It's going to be between 5, 15, 16% pretty much every single week for all of these guys. But I usually pay attention to the ones that are projecting for the most ownership. More often than not, those are the best plays for our low risk contests at all positions. And at quarterback, it does apply as well, of course. So running back, here's some of the guys I talked about already at the beginning of the video. The secret sauce, if you will, behind how we build some things here. And now I want to talk about some of the pass catchers. We look at wide receiver, week in and week out. A player like Jamar Chase is always going to be high on the priority list. I think now that the Bengals have added a veteran quarterback in Joe Flacco, you've really noticed the difference. We see the double-digit target volume in 3 consecutive weeks for Jamar Chase here, 21 plus DraftKings points here in PPR. Firmly back in the conversation week in and week out. Joe Flacco, questionable on the injury report for the Week 9 game, but says he feels good. So to me, that suggests he will be out there at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday at home here for the Bengals. I think we can go with Chase in all of our lineup types this week. We need some value at receiver to make the low-risk build work this week. And the 2 plays that I think the field is all over, at least at this point. A player that pairs well with Jackson Dart, Wan'Dale Robinson, the number 1 receiver here for the Giants, is going to be very popular this week. Should get a ton of work here against the San Francisco 49ers. We are also going to be down Daniel Bellinger here, so that's kind of a fringy thing here for the Giants that is going to push more target volume onto Wan'Dale here. Expecting Robinson, Darius Slayton to be the starting receivers here, and Jackson Dart to probably focus on those 2 guys. Here in a passing game script, he's also going to focus on his tight end, Theo Johnson, because of that Daniel Bellinger injury that we're expecting to sideline him on Sunday. $3,500 here on DraftKings. I do think Theo Johnson is a decent play for low-risk contests, but I think we can massage salary a little bit to get up to a quote-unquote stud tight end here. The popular ones are going to be the ones you've probably gotten used to here, at least in 2025. Tucker Kraft, Green Bay, biggest favorite, highest implied team total on the slate. Couple touchdowns last week, 4 touchdowns the last 3 games. We know the field loves to chase those big scores. They're going to be chasing that with Tucker Kraft here. Speaking of chasing extremely big scores, we do have Oronde Gadsden. He's going to be popular once again here. His salary has come up. 18 plus PPR points here on DraftKings over the last couple of weeks. Good matchup here against the Titans. I'll hydrate a little bit. We'll keep going here. We have Tyler Warren with the Colts. He's once again going to be amongst the highest owned players at the tight end position. And then some of our old favorites, no pun intended, but pun intended, I guess. Travis Kelce with the Chiefs, with Mahomes being popular, and George Kittle going to be popular this week. So any of those guys I think I'm okay with in low-risk contests. I think we can squeeze a better player in here if we're willing to come down to Dart. And I think Dart, we get him with Wan'Dale Robinson. We got Christian McCaffrey as a running back. You see how we're also kind of building a high-risk lineup here? I think this is more of a low-risk format despite that correlation here. At tight end of this group, my favorite personally is going to be Travis Kelce to get some exposure to that high total game between the Chiefs and the Bills here. See, we have 5,200 for our final spot here. I do think that by the time we get to Sunday, we may see a player like Travion Henderson end up in this low-risk group. We got 5,500 for a final wide receiver spot. We're looking at somebody like DK Metcalf with Pittsburgh, QJ with the Chargers. I think the Raiders are redacted, so I'm not even going to mention him by name. Shakir with the Bills feels pretty good to me here. And we got mini stack here with Buffalo and Kansas City as the highest total game here on the slate. So that feels like a really good low-risk lineup to me. Why do I like the Texans? I think that Texans have been one of the better defensive teams this season, and this is one of the lower total games here. The Texans, I believe, are slight favorites as well here against the Denver Broncos at home in the 1 p.m. window. So they just kind of fit with this build. But when we look at where the field is going to be this week for defenses, it is pretty democratically distributed as far as our projected ownership is concerned. We got a lot of teams between like 7 and 10% ownership. The dub plays, obviously you get the Packers and the Rams, but they're way up at the top of the salary table. And I don't mind paying down at the defensive position. 2,900 feels like a nice sweet spot for the Texans here on DraftKings. We have Detroit. They are $3,700. They're amongst the most popular plays for DraftKings low-risk lineups. And we actually, if we go all the way down, we do have the Giants against San Francisco. One of those cheap defenses people are going to try to shove in there. I like Houston in that spot here against Denver. Houston has been pretty good this season on defense. And yeah, I know Denver's a scary opponent, but the one thing we can count on with the Texans is their defense keeping game totals down, and the betting markets agree. This is a total under 40 points. I believe it's 39.5. Texans favorite side at home. I have no problem playing that in low risk. Over on FanDuel here, we can do the same thing. We can get the Texans into our low risk lineup at 3,900, which is very cheap by their standards. We got 5,900 for a final receiver spot with this slightly different low risk build that I'll discuss in a second here. And I don't mind a lot of the plays here. You see we have Wandale. I got the Mahomes-Kelsey build in here. Stephon Diggs, he still has the best weighted opportunity role in this Patriots receiving offense. Finally did get in the end zone last week, even though the overall performance in fantasy wasn't great. His salary here on FanDuel of $6,200 puts him firmly in the low-risk core there, priced a little bit more competitively over on DraftKings, so I think he's more of a high-risk play there. That's why you always got to pay attention to the sites that you are playing on. But I think this here is a pretty good framework for low risk on both sites this week, and I like it a lot. Now, looking at high-risk contests, I like to look at some of the teams that are projecting very well for me in projections here. And so with Puka Nacua returning for the Rams, I'm going to have the Rams back at the top of my personal priority list for a stack. We get Nacua, we get Matthew Stafford, we get Kyren Williams. And because the Rams are favored by 14 points here, we do not have to use a Saints player as a bringback. Because if the prediction markets are right here, right? If the Rams do in fact win this game by double-digit points, if the Saints struggle to score with their rookie quarterback, Tyler Shuck, making his first start here, and maybe he's not able to keep up with the Rams here, there's a good chance Saints players like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, Juwan Johnson, maybe they don't produce enough points in fantasy to outscore their similarly priced peers in other games. This is a situation where, yeah, we do typically like to build 2-1 or 3-1 double stacks with bringbacks in our high-risk lineups in all contest types here in DraftKings and FanDuel. But when it gets to this level, we are fine building 2-0s and 3-0s. That is to say, stacks with no bringbacks, and use some of those best plays from other teams. So let's build an example out here, Puka. And if we go to the Occupy model, we look at receiver. Puka is our number one OF index receiver on DraftKings for week 9. We go to the running back plays. Kyren Williams is our number one running back play in the Occupy model for week 9. So I have no problem going with Nakua, Williams, get Matthew Stafford in here at $6,300. We go to some of the other plays that I discussed already with Monangai here from the Bears. We get him in here. I want to check something. Actually would probably make sense to play Kyren at flex position. I'd like to try to still get CMC in here if we can. It's going to be tough with Nakua. $37.50 per player remaining. We get that Texans defense in here. Now let's look at some of the exciting options in tournaments this week. We have our underperforming wide receiver list. And one of the underperforming wide receivers that I'm drawn to the most here is with Jacksonville this week because of a combination of factors here. We have Parker Washington on the underperforming wide receiver list. And unfortunately, Travis Hunter was added to injured reserve today for an injury he sustained in practice. That is opening up even more opportunity for Parker Washington to succeed here. I think at 3,700, he's worth taking a flyer on in high risk, and he may actually end up being very popular by Sunday afternoon for low risk lineups as well to get these studs in here. We have 4,200 per player remaining. Talked about a cheap tight end earlier in the video for low risk contests in Theo Johnson. He is a correlated play with Christian McCaffrey here. We have 4,900 for a final receiver. And there are some guys here. You know, Troy Franklin was a big play for us last week as an underperforming wide receiver. He got 2 scores in. We got Jameson Williams with the Lions, Trey Tucker from the redacted team, Matthew Golden with the Packers. There's definitely plays here that fit that would make this work, I think, for high-risk lineups. One way you could finish off a lineup here, look, if you were going to go with this 3-0 Ram stack like I am looking at here in this video, just use our salary slider here. See who your top plays are under $4,900 here on DraftKings. One of them I've already got in my lineup, and it shows me the top options that I can consider by our proprietary OF index ranking which uses a bunch of factors to come up with the best plays based off of all the matchups this weekend. So the Rams high-risk stack with no bringback seems to be very doable here on DraftKings. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works out. Another option for me that I'm interested in this week behind the Rams, I like the Bengals, right? I like Flacco. I like Jamar Chase. And this is an example of a team that I'm actually okay with doing a 2-1 with. We can get Chase in here. Flacco down here, $600. And we have plenty of those cheap bringbacks or just bringbacks in general on the Chicago side. The easiest one being Monangai here now because of the injury situation with DeAndre Swift. I think people may be a little bit more drawn to the other side of this matchup, which I do also like, with Caleb Williams similarly priced to Joe Flacco. We can get another underperforming wide receiver in our model this week in Roma Dunze into our lineup. Look at the target volume, 5+ targets last 3 weeks, 10 targets last week, no touchdowns in that 3-week sample. That is always going to be something that pushes guys onto our underperforming wide receiver list for upcoming contests. This is a solid 3-1 option, guys, this week that I think we can get into our lineups fairly easily. Show you once again some of the core plays that we like. Jackson's defense. We can get, we can get Wandale in here. Right? We can probably still get to CMC here. $39.50 per player remaining. You get a cheap tight end in here, Theo Johnson, or if there are others that you prefer, $4,400 for a flex play. There's definitely receiver plays in this range. Use the Occupy model, filter by salary, look at what fits with your lineup. There's ways to make this work, and this is another way to build that I really like this week. But the core is going to be built around cheap running backs this week. Kyle Monangai, definitely the chief amongst them. Not Kareem Hunt, the actual chief amongst them. It's going to be Kyle Monangai as the best play in this value group. Appreciate you guys, as always, for watching the video. That's going to do it for me here in Week 9. What are some of your favorite plays here in Week 9? Leave a comment in the comment section below, and myself, Brian, some of the other admins here on the channel will be in there to answer your questions between now and kickoff on Sunday afternoon. And our daily plug with our top plays for this week is always linked in the description of the video below as well. If you're looking for some more options, I have 6 high-risk stacks that I list week in and week out, more than I can go over in this video. So that's well worth checking out for that reason. And we also have the full list of underperforming wide receivers, which is huge this week. I think we have about a dozen that are playing on this main slate that are all very, very strong plays in my opinion. So can't wait to see how things shake out this Sunday. Looking forward to it. And as always, guys, good luck in Week 9. We'll be back next week to talk to you about Week 10.